Hello everyone, it's Michael John. S5 fifth 5014 Part B. The duckbill falls to the ground and struggles to get away. Rip. T-Rex bites down and tears off another huge chunk of meat and bone. As the Titan becomes still, the T-Rex begins to feed. Chapter 2, Hunter vs. Scavenger. We know from the shape of its teeth the T-Rex was meat-eater, but without a time machine, we can't be certain how T-Rex got the meat it ate. Many kinds of animals eat meat, from shrews to killer whales, garter snakes to crocodile, mockingbirds to condors. Meat-eaters, called carnivores, come in many shapes and sizes. All carnivores eat other animals, but not all carnivores kill the animals they eat. Those that do kill their own food are called hunters or predators. Those that eat carrion other bodies of animals that are already dead, called scavengers. Lions and hawks are examples of hunters. Brown hyenas and vultures are examples of scavengers. We can watch present-day carnivores and see how they got their food. What about extinct or no longer living carnivores like T-Rex? T-Rex died out 65 million years before human beings were alive, so no person ever saw a T-Rex feed. Substitute science or paleontology. Paleontology is scientists who study fossils, the remains of ancient animals and plants preserved in rock. Dinosaurs like T-Rex are known only from the fossil. Well, scientists use observations about the world around us to try and answer questions. Paleontologists, for example, look at the fossil remains of ancient creatures to try and answer questions about how they live. One question that paleontologists have asked is whether T-Rex was a hunter or scavenger, but because no human being has observed a living T-Rex, we can't answer that question for certain. Many people think T-Rex is one of the most interesting dinosaurs, if not the most interesting one. And many have strong feelings about how they think T-Rex lived. Maybe they think that T-Rex was too scary looking to be a scavenger. Or maybe they think it was too big and bulky to be a good hunter. Science, however, doesn't work by feelings. If we want to answer a question scientifically, we have to put aside our feelings. Instead, to do good science, we have to ask, look at the evidence or clues that we can find to help answer the question. That evidence might show that our favorite answer is correct. It might show that our favorite answer is wrong. It might even show that there isn't enough evidence to choose between answers. So let's try to answer the hunter-scavenger question by looking at the evidence found in fossils. Chapter 4, T-Rex, the scavenger. Some paleontologists think that T-Rex could not hunt. They think that it was strictly a scavenger. They base this idea on their own observations of its bones. What are their observations? Its eyes were small, so it probably couldn't see very well. The smelling part of its brain was so huge it probably sniffed for carrion like a vulture. Its arms were too tiny to catch food. Its teeth were built for crushing bones and not for slicing meat. Its legs were too short for it to have run fast. In science, a good question is one that can be answered by looking at evidence. Let's see if the evidence really supports the idea. Chapter 5, Beady eyes, dino brains, and dinky arms. Look at the skull of T-Rex. At first glance, it looks like the space for the eyeball is really small, especially compared to the rest of the head. Some paleontologists think that this would have made the T-Rex's eyes too beady or small to see well. But in dinosaurs, as in most animals, the size of the eyes compared to head changes as an animal gets bigger. To see what I mean, compare a baby's head to grown-ups, or a puppy's head to an adult dog's. Baby eyes are bigger compared to the rest of the heads than a grown-up eyes. But if we measure the size of the eyes of a grown-up person or an adult dog, we find that their eyes are bigger than the eyes of the baby or the puppy. The skulls in the old animals have simply grown bigger, causing their eyes to look smaller. The same thing happened with the dinosaurs. When we look at fossil skulls of baby and adult duck-billed dinosaurs, or at young and adult T-Rex, we see that the eyes of the young dinosaurs look big compared to the size of the smaller skulls. But if you measure the young dinosaurs' eyes, they are in fact also smaller than the adult eyes. So T-Rex didn't have beady eyes. In fact, the eyeball of an adult T-Rex was almost as big as a softball. In modern animals, big eyeball often means good eyesight. This suggests that T-Rex had very good vision. Paleontologists have studied the shape of the brain inside the skull of a T-Rex. We know that the part of the brain that controlled its sense of smell was enormous. In fact, it was bigger in T-Rex than in any other dinosaur studied so far. This part of the brain is also very big in vultures, which are scavengers. So some paleontologists think that a T-Rex acted like a vulture. That is, it sniffed around for carrion to eat. But just because T-Rex had a good sense of smell doesn't mean that it couldn't hunt. After all, wolves have an excellent sense of smell and they are definitely hunters. Being able to smell a living dinosaur would have been just as helpful to a hunter as being able to smell a dead dinosaur would have been to a scavenger. So the size of the part of its brain that smells doesn't help us answer the question one way or the other. Lion, spotted hyena, T-Rex. What about those with dinky arms? T-Rex had a very short arms for its size. In fact, its hands couldn't reach its own mouth. Paleontologists who think the T-Rex was just a scavenger say that its arms were too short to have been useful in hunting. Paleontologists who think the T-Rex was a hunter agree that its arms were useless in hunting. But just because T-Rex couldn't use its arms to attack doesn't mean that it wasn't a hunter. After all, modern predators do not all hunt the same way. Lions, tigers, and other big cats attack by first grabbing their victims or prey with their arms. Then they then kill them with their teeth and claws. But wolves and spotted hyenas hunt using only their jaws. These hunters have powerful skulls and teeth that let them tear at or grab on to prey without using their arms. Eagles and hawks are hunters whose arms have changed into wings. Snakes are hunters that have no arms or legs at all. So there are many hunters alive today that kill other animals without using arms. Just because the T-Rex didn't have long arms doesn't mean it wasn't a hunter. It just means it didn't use its arms to hunt. Chapter 6, Bone-crushing teeth and bite marks. Teeth of most meat-eating dinosaurs were shaped like a steak knives. They were flat on each side and had cutting edges with little bumps called serrations on the front and back. Like a steak knife, these teeth were built to cut and slide through meat. The teeth of T-Rex and its closest relative, the other tyrant dinosaurs, were different from knives. Tyrant dinosaur teeth had serrated edges, but they were rounded on each side like bananas and not flat. Tyrant teeth were not like steak knives. They wouldn't have been good for slicing through meat at all. The differences between typical meat-eating dinosaur teeth and tyrant teeth went even further into the bone. That is, in most carnivore dinosaurs, the crown is about the same size as the root, the part holding it in the jaw. But in tyrant dinosaurs, the crown is only half the size of the root. So T-Rex and its relatives have teeth that were very firmly held in place. Some paleontologists say that without steak knife like this, T-Rex couldn't have been a hunter. They think that banana-shaped teeth were good only for crunching the bones of dead dinosaurs. They believe that the meat on these bodies would have been sliced off by the animals who really killed them. Most paleontologists agree that T-Rex had bone-crushing teeth. In fact, we have found partially eaten Triceratops and Edmontosaurus bones that clearly show T-Rex tooth marks. We even have a piece of fossilized T-Rex poop, full of broken bits of dinosaur bone. Still, we can tell from these fossils if T-Rex was scavenging carrion or had killed these animals and then eaten them, bones and all. There is evidence, however, showing that a T-Rex was able to attack another living dinosaur. This is a fossil of a fully grown Edmontosaurus found in Montana. Near the base of its tail, there's a big bite mark. The shape of the bite and the marks of the teeth in the bone exactly match the jaws of a T-Rex. What is special about this bite mark is that the wound on the bone had partially healed. Only a living animal can heal, so we know that at least once a T-Rex bit a living duckbill. Modern hunters often fail to kill their prey. This was probably true of T-Rex too. Does having bone-crushing teeth mean that T-Rex was only a scavenger? Almost certainly not. After all, the most famous bone-crushing carnivore today is a spotted hyena, which many people mistake for a scavenger, but which is really a very active predator. So instead of using its arms to attack, like a lion or tiger, T-Rex used the power and strength of its jaws and teeth, like a wolf or spotted hyena. Because T-Rex teeth were thick, like bananas, and had deep roots, they could hold on to struggling prey without being as easily snapped off as a steak knife teeth. T-Rex may have had useless arms, but its jaws and teeth were very dangerous. Chapter 7, Looking at Legs. Some paleontologists think that T-Rex was not a hunter because its legs were too short for it to run fast. They compare the length of the Rex's shin bone to the length of its thigh bone. Paleontologists then look at T-Rex. In a full-grown adult, the shin bone is slightly shorter than the thigh bone. This they see as a clue, suggesting that T-Rex could not run. If it could not run, then it could not hunt. But were T-Rex legs really too short for running? In many fast-running animals, like antelopes and ostriches, the shins are longer than the thighs. But in a few fast-running animals, like horses and lions, the thighs are a little longer than the shins. And in some slow animals, like pigs, the thighs are also a little longer than the shins. The real difference between fast and slow animals is in the feet. Fast running animals almost always have longer feet than slow ones, and T-Rex has pretty long feet. The shape of T-Rex and other dinosaur legs also changed as they got older. In young dinosaur, the shins were a lot longer than the thighs. The foot bones were also long, but as the animals grew older, the shins and foot bones didn't grow as fast as the thigh bone. Only in the biggest T-Rex adults is the shin a little shorter than the thigh. Young tyrant dinosaurs had the same long skinny legs and feet as ostrich dinosaurs like Ornithomimus and Gallimimus. Paleontologists agree that the long legs of ostrich dinosaurs indicate they were faster runners than other dinosaurs of the same size. So the young tyrant dinosaurs must have been fast runners too. Okay, T-Rex was probably fast, probably. But was it fast enough to hunt? In order to find that out, we have to look at the legs of the animals it would eat. The legs of the duckbill, for example, have shorter shins than thine. Also, their feet are very short and stumpy. In comparison to tyrant dinosaurs, duckbills have shorter and heavier, and probably slower legs. The horned dinosaurs who lived in the kingdom of T-Rex had even shorter shins. They were probably even slower than the duckbills. So was T-Rex too slow to hunt? Definitely not. Although we can never know exactly how fast the T-Rex was, its bones were better built for running than those of the plant eaters in its kingdom. To be a hunter, it simply had to be faster than its prey. And that's what the bones show. Chapter 8, Modern Meat Eaters. We have heard the scavenger-only argument. We have seen the fossil evidence. How well does the argument hold up? Let's review. The eyes of T-Rex only looked beady. They were actually quite large. The large smelling part of T-Rex's brain was just as useful for the hunter as for the scavenger. The arms of T-Rex probably were useless for hunting, but many living hunters use only their jaws to capture and kill food. These of T-Rex were not good for slicing, but they were excellent for biting huge chunks out of struggling live victims. The legs of T-Rex were better built for running than those of any of the plant eaters in the kingdom. Based on this evidence, the scavenger-only argument doesn't hold up very well at all. In fact, when we look at modern meat eaters, we find that very few of them are only scavengers or only hunters. There are a few that are just one or the other. Vultures are one exception. They eat only carrion. Wild snakes are another. They eat only live food. Most cannibals in the world today are both scavengers and hunters. For example, lions are famous for their hunting skill, but in the wild, lions get 1/10 or more of their food from scavenging carrion. People tend to think of spotted hyenas as scavengers, but they actually get 2/3 of their food from hunting. In fact, in some parts of Africa, hyenas get 9/10 of their food by hunting. That's the same as lion. This shows why feelings are a bad way to do science. We might feel that lions are hunters and spotted hyenas are scavengers, but when we actually observe them feeding, it turns out that both are hunters and scavengers. If we trusted our feelings without actually observing these animals, we would be mistaken about their life. Chapter 9, The Life of a T-Rex. We know that lions and hyenas are both hunters and scavengers because we can go to Africa and see them doing both. But without a time machine, we can't watch a living T-Rex feed. Scientists make educated guesses about the life of T-Rex by looking at its bones and comparing it to living meat eaters. We've seen that the scavenger-only evidence doesn't hold up, but that doesn't mean that T-Rex never scavenged it. Of course it did. We're certain that T-Rex ate carrion when it found it. After all, carrion is a free meal, and most animals and people won't pass up a free meal when they get hungry. Feeding on carrion is also a lot less dangerous than attacking a living dinosaur. A T-Rex could get hurt while chasing after a duckbill. Even worse, it could get killed fighting a horned Triceratops or armored Ankylosaurus. But a dead Triceratops isn't dangerous. It can fight back. Because T-Rex was bigger than all the other meat eaters in its kingdom, it could easily chase other meat eaters away from their own kills. The T-Rex get only 1/10 of its food from carrion, half of its food, most of its food, without being able to watch a living T-Rex. We cannot know for certain, but T-Rex definitely could hunt when it wanted to. Remember that Edmontosaurus tail with the bite taken out of it? They show that at least sometimes T-Rex would attack a live animal. Paleontologists can even make some reasonable guesses about how T-Rex would attack. T-Rex would have probably hunted like a giant wolf or giant spotted hyenas. It would run up to its prey, grab it with its strong jaws, and rip out big hunks of meat. It certainly wouldn't use its little arms. Remember the two stories at the beginning of this book. In one, the T-Rex found some carry on to eat. In the other, it killed an animal for food. Both things happened from time to time in the kingdom of T-Rex, just like most carnivores today. T-Rex was probably a hunter and scavenger. T-Rex and its world are long gone. We will never see one alive. Paleontologists might disagree about how it lived, but we all agree that by asking questions and examining fossils, we can bring it back to life in our imagination. The end.